Hello everyone, it's time for another edition of Adventures in Careerland. I am Adriano Magnifico. I'm your host for this podcast. It's a podcast about career stories. It's a podcast about students and post-secondary folks and leaders of industry coming to our podcast studio or talking to us from some odd location like Vancouver or Montreal or Toronto and sharing their stories, sharing how they got to where they are, what decisions they're making, what challenges they're facing, how did their educational path turn into what it's become. Always good, always inspirational. We have a lot of students who listen to this podcast and they often tell me that they are inspired by some of the stories, and it's really gratifying for them to hear that some of the issues they're thinking about, some of the potential problems they're wondering about or challenges as they meander through their career journey feel a little better when they feel like other people are experiencing the same thing. So we're always super happy. This is season 7. This is the 4th episode, 78 in the giant continuum of stories. How exciting is that? And of course, we are broadcasting from the podcast studio. The Arts and Technology Center has 13 applied and technical programs. They include the broadcast media program, which we are centered in right now, baking, pastry, building trades, culinary arts, early childhood educator, electrical trades, hairstyling. If you need to find a space where you can think about your best self or where that best self exists, this may be a space for you. So we're always excited when students choose this off the beaten path. As a high school student, can be a post-secondary student, can also be an international student. And we welcome everyone and their diverse stories and their needs and challenges, and we try to help them through those challenges. Hey, and we're in the broadcast podcast studio, and I have two of the co-hosts here. Caitlin Middlestad, how are you today, Caitlin?
I'm pretty good.
You're pretty good.
Yeah.
So, Caitlin, tell me what project you're working on in broadcast media right now.
Well, we recently switched from news to radio today, so we are going to be starting our whole radio thing. So I'm currently making my scripts for some commercials I'm making for the radio.
How challenging is that? Do you like it?
I mean, I like it, but it pushes my creativity. So, and it's early, so it's...
Well, you like to write, you told me.
Yeah, I do.
Is that correct? You like poetry and you like to write. So is script writing something that really connects to you?
Sometimes. I mean, it's kind of hard sometimes because you have to try and make it flow so it sounds good, like, you know, on air and all put together.
You have to have good writing.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but it's hard sometimes. But
right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you're working on that. Keep pushing yourself because you're getting more and more skilled at things. I'm watching you in action. And we have Caden Sidler. Sidler, we never got his last name right, but I nailed it this time. Sidler, got it. Yeah. What are you up to?
Pretty good. Like Caitlin said, we're switching over from news to radio, so we just did a full news broadcast live on Thursday, was it?
See, this program's crazy. I watch you guys in action. Yeah. And those switches and all the pieces you're doing that are in the studio or in this podcast studio or out at events, what are they building in you, man?
I'd say I'm learning a lot of teamwork, especially for event stuff. I'm learning how to work better with people and more dependent on myself with the things I'm learning. I feel more comfortable every time we do these things.
Is this something you think you want to do in your life?
Yes. I mean,
what part? Because there's many parts. Caitlin, you've seen the parts too, right? Mm-hmm. What parts connect to you? Because you do a lot of stuff here, including learning the Adobe suite and doing all the graphic design and art and video editing, right? Yeah. So that's pretty cool stuff. Yeah. What parts connect to you a lot? Do you like to be out in front? Do you like to be behind the scenes making the technical work or the thumbnails or the edits of the videos?
I mean, I like being on the podcast. This is fun, but I think when I was one of the on-air people with Geneva, so that was my first time being live in front of a camera. It was a good change. I feel more comfortable, but I'm definitely more of a behind the scenes guy.
I saw you. I watched that video you were making. All you guys were making. Did you see him on TV?
Yeah.
I saw him on TV, and I thought, you've come a long way. I'm serious. I thought, you doing this, think about yourself doing this 6 months ago.
Yeah, no, I would have been.
You would have melted. You would have melted.
Yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking, but then once we read the script like 100 times on the teleprompter, so it got. I was pretty. When it went live, I didn't really feel much pressure, but
I think the skills you're getting here are immeasurable, and you don't even know how strong you're getting. I'm telling you, I watch you guys in action, and the beauty of being a teacher in this context is I watch you at the beginning and see kind of how useless you are at the beginning. And I mean that with great respect, even though it doesn't sound that way. And then watch this growth happen where you're standing in front of that camera. I never would have believed you could have done that.
Yeah, me neither.
And I saw Geneva as well, who's on that booth doing the weather and doing some of the news. I was stunned by how poised you both were doing that. So I sometimes you don't know, and you have to surround yourself with some of the mentors who are not just going to give you that pat on the back, but ask you to do that hard work and go through. I like when you said it's hard work, Caitlin, to do those scripts and to get them right.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to read a bad script.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it's the hard work, though. And is there a good feeling of satisfaction when you put it up there and you see someone else doing your work and getting it right? How do you feel when that happens?
I feel pretty good, especially like once the script is done and sometimes I have other people to voice it for me and stuff.
It's pretty cool, right?
It all flows well, and they are like, they don't say, oh, I need to make a change, that this doesn't sound right. When it just is perfect, I'm like, yay. Like,
right on. And that's what happens when you learn. That's what happens when you find, you're curious about stuff and you find learning to be so engaging, you want the next step. You want to keep stepping out of your comfort zone. You want to keep, give me more. And that's what you do in this program. Yeah. So I congratulate you two as always, and I'm happy to have you as podcast. But we have a guest today. Dun, 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 dun. We have a guest today, and this is a person who's also had a journey of learning and growth. And I've known him for a while through career activities in which we've been participating together. In fact, I think I approached him, but I'll introduce this person. This is Riel Ree, likes to be known as Ree Dion. Dion, I want to talk en français. Dion, not Dion. People will call him Dion. But this is a graduate from Collège Louis Riel, 1994. And Riel Ree, we welcome you to the podcast. How are you, sir?
Love being here. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. We want you to talk about those times when you're at Collège Louis Riel and you're in the hallways. We like to have our guests start out and talking about what was going through your head in those hallways as you were thinking about, I'm having a good time socializing, doing my work, playing some sports, academics. What kind of student were you? What was going through your head? What were you thinking about down the road?
Yeah, being in high school, I got to tell you, is an area of discovery where you don't always know what you're doing. You don't know what you're setting out for. So what I'm hearing Caitlin and Caden say, Sidler here saying is that they figured it out a lot sooner than I did. When I was in high school, I had no hot clue what I wanted to do. I know that I was a terrible student. I didn't like to study. I was actually really good at sports. Since the time I was 15, I started playing provincial sports and provincial teams, and I had a really great coach and a mentor, which I'll talk about in a little bit. For anyone who's in high school, I would say don't sweat it too much in terms of if you don't have it figured out. This is the time to explore. When you guys were talking earlier about Adriano, he's saying, man, when you started this plan, you had no skills, man, you weren't anywhere. There are 4 steps that I want to sort of weigh in on, if I can, Adriano, is when you don't know you're not good at something, that's called unconsciously incompetent. You don't know you're not good at it. And the next step after that is until somebody points it out to you, hey, Sidler, you actually suck at this. Then you become consciously incompetent. It means you're aware that you're not good at something. And then you have 2 decisions to make at that point. Either you continue to suck at it and you don't care, or you want to get better at it. If you want to get better at it, then you work at it because you've decided now that you want to go in a particular direction. For you, that might be, newscasting or radios, or if you want to go into events, then you and I can connect later because that's kind of what I do for a living. The third step is then you become consciously competent. You're like, oh man, I rock at this. I'm so good at this. This is great. Caitlin, same thing for you. You're good at writing. You're getting better at it. It becomes easier every day. And then you become so good at it that the last stage is that you're unconsciously competent. You don't even know you're good at something until you find something else that you suck at, and then you become unconsciously incompetent at that thing, and then the cycle starts over until somebody points it out and going, hey, you really suck at this, or you're not very good at this, and then the cycle starts over. For me, that was high school. I didn't know I was a bad student until it was pointed out to me. I knew I was good at sports, so I was unconsciously competent in sports, but I was unconsciously incompetent in studies. And all of that changed after high school when I decided to pull my life together and realize I can't keep going through life playing sports because I'm not good enough to be a professional.
But you were good enough to play sports. It sounds like at a pretty high level, because that was a hook though, right? Like high school has to have a hook in it, right?
For sure.
And when you have that hook, and Caden, what was your hook at Windsor Park? Like these guys are both graduated.
Right.
So now they're here as post-secondary. Was there a hook for you in high school? Was it this program?
Yeah, well, if there's anything, it'd be this program. Like in grade 11, when I made the mistake of not choosing this program, I probably should have at the time, but I mean, it all worked out in the end. But that was definitely, the hook was coming here, I'd say.
Caitlin, what was your hook?
Probably coming here, yeah.
Otherwise, what was the hook? If you didn't come to this, what's high school offering you? I mean, you're learning to read and write. All those good things in school. I'm not trying to talk badly about the high school system, but high school needs hooks. You're consuming so many pieces in high school. Core 30 credits. That's a lot of credits to consume in a high school context. If something's not hooking you, do you have friends in your own context who have been unhooked and just, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because also in high school, like if I didn't have like ATC to know that I'm like, to like, I guess, be my hook, I wouldn't have really have had anything. So I wasn't the best at studying, and I definitely was not the best at sports. So I guess I'm grateful that ATC was an option for me in my school, because it opened more doors for me.
Very good. And you understand that most divisions don't have an ATC.
Yeah, exactly.
So think about all the high school students all over the place.
Yeah.
That are looking for that hook or the mentor. Riel also talked about the mentor, the importance of that mentor. Now, in when you talked about your 4 stages, unconsciously incompetent, consciously competent, I like that. It sounds like a book on the way or something.
Oh, that's not original material, by the way. I totally stole that.
Anyway, like somebody has to point those things out to you, right? So it's almost like you have to surround yourself with people. It's hard on your own.
Yeah.
To really look inside, right? And to really understand who is my best self, right?
Yeah.
So when it came to sports, you're gravitating to sports, Riel. What attracts you to the sports?
Well, the sport that I played was called team handball. It's sort of a kind of spring sport. You play it after volleyball and soccer and football and all the other more popular sports. For me, what drove me or what hooked me to that particular sport or any particular sport, and that later on translated into other parts of my life, is the teamwork. And so I mentioned I had a coach. The coach pushed me really hard. He didn't push me hard because he was a jerk. He pushed me hard because he saw potential. And when you can have potential, whether it's Caitlin with writing or whether it's Sidler with newscast and broadcasting, the mentors are really important. But more so, you have to understand that a mentor is not just a single person, it's a relationship. You have to be open to the mentorship. So Sidler, you might turn to Mags as a mentor of sorts, right? Like, who do I go to when I need advice? Who do I go to when I need to talk to somebody? Not who's going to give me the answers, but somebody's going to go, what do you think about that? And where is your drive? So Max here is not telling you like, hey, this was your hook, right, Sidler? He's like, what was your hook? And you have to figure that out on your own. That's what mentors do in your life, whether it's in sports or in academia or in high school or at ATCs. I'm sort of circling back to how important it is to have those things. And Caitlin, I don't know, do you have a mentor in your life? Do you have someone you look up to?
Currently not really, but I feel like maybe in this course it would probably be my teachers, just because they've accomplished so much, and they're kind of trying to help us bring us down the same path. So I guess, yeah,
great
my teachers.
And it's interesting. And really, I've got mentors in my life.
Yeah.
Ree's got mentors in his life. And there's people to whom we go, and we don't want to have conversations that pat us on the head like Cocker Spaniels. We don't want that. We want to know, what could I be doing better? What do you notice? Like, how to challenge us. Always a challenge. I've had many people come say to me, if I'm running an event, like the CAPS event or something like that, well, you'll never use the holes, you'll never get this, you'll never get this. And the real mentors in my life say, go get them. Go figure it out.
Yeah.
When I run something called the Tigers Den, which is an entrepreneurship conference, the opening question, like students ask a million questions, and now when I do the Tigers Den event, one of the simple slides says, the answer to every question is yes, as long as you figure it out. And as soon as you figure something out, you're on the road. So you're coming out of high school and you're playing high-end handball. Do you guys know what handball is?
Yeah.
You two know who handball is?
Yeah.
Windsor Park at a handball team.
Yeah, I didn't play on the
played
team,
for that team, and I coached that team.
Really?
I went to Windsor Park.
Oh, me too.
Windsor Park Collegiate?
Yeah.
As a student?
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
I did.
Come on.
I did.
I thought you were at College Louis Riel.
Well, I transferred from Windsor Park to Louis Riel. So yeah, I know it. I know the school really well. Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool.
So, talk about the handball experience and how that grew. Because you played on the national Canadian handball team. Who does that?
Well, I did. It was really fun, considering I'm so short, and a lot of the guys that I play on the team were like almost a foot taller than me in some cases. But the sports were really important because they gave me the focus that I think any high schooler needs or any young adult needs, whether they find that in sports or any other activities. So we're talking about mentors here. The mentors are important, but the drive still has to come from you, right? Mentors get that drive out of you. They're the ones who are saying, I'm here for you, you can do this, but you have to answer the question, how are you going to do this? If they tell you how to do it, that's called a boss. And bosses are important too, but mentors are exceptionally important because they're the ones who are there to sort of guide on the side, not mage on the stage sort of approach to your life, right? They've been there, they've done that. We know what you're going through, we know what you're going to go through, and they're just there to sort of help you guide along the process of thinking through your problems or thinking through what you want to do with your life is the really important part. If they just tell you, then you'll never learn anything. But if they make you think through it, then you'll go a lot further because your chemistry changes when you start thinking differently.
Okay, well that's national team handball. That's not Ed Schmegley Seidler handball, okay? No disrespect, my friend. And I really want to know. Okay, you're in a national team. Like when you're sitting, you must have played in exotic ports of call, right? What were some of the places you played in?
Well, the national team in '95 was a starting team, and so we stayed in Canada. But I'll disagree with you, Mags. I think regardless of the scale, and Mags and I never disagree.
We never disagree. No.
I disagree. I mean, the scale has nothing to do with the relationship of your ability to drive your own life and the direction you want to go in and the people you choose to surround yourself with. I think that's the most important part, is whether or not you're struggling to get through high school or whether you're trying to make a national team, the struggle is still the same to the person who's struggling.
Okay, so Ree just schooled me, okay? I take it. But you have to tell me, when you're in a national team, are the towels a little softer? Are the chairs on the bench, are they padded better? That's what I want to know. You're in a national team, man. Are the outfits just glittery and kind of cool? Are you getting bling? Talk about that, being on a national team, man. That's what I want to know.
So the lead up to making the national team was really difficult. We were talking about 6 days a week of practicing and then 3 games, sometimes exhibitions on the weekends. And then you were playing, again, more importantly, you're playing against teams that are way, way, way better than you are. And when you play against teams that are better than you are, you'll do two things. You'll try and meet their level, or you'll just fold. And we never had the opportunity to fold. We always had to learn from each game, and we always had to improve ourselves for the next game. And it was painful. We're talking about a lot of strength training, a lot of conditioning, and a lot of technicals. And all of those things translate if you allow yourself to translate them when you decide that you don't want to do one thing in your life anymore. So I transitioned a lot from the time I was in high school. I never thought I'd be here talking to you guys. But if we're talking about transitions, I guess I'll pose the question to Caitlin and Seidler. What transition do you see yourself in the next kind of 6 months? So you're here right now. That's great. You know what you're doing. You're consciously competent. You're good at what you're doing. Where are you guys going next?
Yeah.
And who are you thinking is going to mentor you when ATC's not around and when your teachers aren't around?
Yeah, I definitely think I'll still stay in touch with teachers here and people that helped me in ATC. But I think
we'd like to cut that cord. If we can, scissor motion happening right now.
But in the next 6 months, I hope to get a job out of, like, after our internships. Hopefully, get into the industry of. I like cameras, so I'd like to be behind a camera at either sports events or anything that needs that. So I hope to get somewhere that'll help me move forward and. I'll probably still talk to Megs and.
Well, you're like me, Seidler. You have a face for radio, so it's good that you want to be behind the camera and not in front of it.
Yeah.
Oh, he's taking us down. Like, this is just, he's working us. I like this.
Listen, so before we get there, if you love tech and you love cameras, I know a guy in the industry, and he's the guy who I rely on to do all my AV, whether it's a virtual event or a live event. If you're serious about that, just get my digits from Mags there, and we'll connect you.
For sure.
You don't have an internship yet, do you?
No, I don't.
This could be a great opportunity for you.
It's
all happening in the podcast. Look what happens in this podcast. Aren't you glad you woke up this morning?
Yes. And sleep in.
Yes, I am. Caitlin, is there anything out there for you?
Well, I was.
Construction going on.
That's my heart beating because I'm so excited.
We're excited here. It's the pounding. It's the telltale heart. There's someone buried under the floorboards here. Edgar Allan Poe. That's a short story.
I love that story.
I mean, after ATC, I'm kind of planning on going to, unless my internship works out really well and I get a job out of there. If not, I'm kind of planning on going to Red River. But you don't have the internship yet, right? No, not yet.
Okay, so you got to work on that. And that's what I work on with you guys. I'm coming into your classroom to work on some of those pieces.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, if my internship doesn't, get me employed afterwards, I am planning on maybe going to Red River for creative communications just to.
I love it.
Great program.
I love it.
Great program.
Yeah, just to extend my knowledge even a little bit more.
And to build your network.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
I saw a great study, I believe from, I wish I had the guy's name, but Scott Galloway is someone I listen to from the Stern School, and he talks a lot about, or he gathers the research from this particular Harvard, Cambridge professor whose name escapes me at the moment. But one of the things is when you surround yourself, and the research shows, when you surround yourself with people who are pushing themselves, showing initiative, it kind of rubs off on you a bit. And the research shows that you also develop that mindset. You develop that growth mindset about, I'll take that challenge on. I'll do it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes high schools don't challenge you enough. There's a set curriculum. It's prescribed. You hand it out. And remember, 50% gets you a credit, even though you're half wrong all the time.
Yeah.
All right? So those are, when you're pushing yourself, it's not a mark anymore. It's about this. It's about your heart and your growth and your mindset. So pretty cool. Something good's going to happen to both of you. I know that. Hey, Ree, talk about some of these part-time jobs you had going through high school, because you talked about McDonald's yesterday. And what did you get out of those things? Like you mentioned a number of them, and you did a lot of them. Every one of them, to me, when you told me, I said, there's great value there. And I wonder what you gleaned from that moving forward from some of them. Mention a couple of them if you would.
Yeah, I think I followed the same path that a lot of other high school students follow. So you find the fast food restaurants, you go to record stores or you knock on doors at the mall and you want to you want to sell Susie Shear. That, I don't know if that's still a restaurant or still a store anymore, I'm not sure. But the common theme is teamwork and relying on other people. So played sports all my life, and I wanted to take that sports mentality to a job. We didn't have YouTube back in the day, and we didn't have social media, but I wasn't a kid who wanted to sit in his basement and learn how to program computers, which is a very kind of individual thing to do, even though there are communities where you can do those things now. Back in the day, I just wanted to be around people, and I wanted to learn how to work in a team. So when you're on a sports team, you learn how to play with others, you learn how to push yourself, and places like McDonald's, A&W, Burger King, all those places teach you so many things, right? The cash management and customer service and how to stay busy and how to clean, all those other things. So
and how to work in tension. Like those places are tension-filled spaces. And I've seen some students whose faces they almost look grim sometime in these places because it's just not working. Yeah. But through practice, devo fare la pratica, we say in Italian. You just have to make it. You must practice. You must get better. That's why when we do, when you sit in front of that camera and you're watching the telestrator and you're doing it, you do that over and over and over and over again. You can't imagine how competent you're becoming at talking to that camera. Yeah. It's an amazing thing. It's always practice, but I'm not sure students practice enough in things that arouse their curiosity, so it's not as engaging. So those are great challenges. I love that you've chosen this place. You talked about being an average student, Ree.
Below average.
Below average. But for me, that's kind of the average student. There's this sense of I've got my 60 to 65%. Remember, most of the building in a high school is filled with 60 to 65% people. No one pays attention to them because they're not going to fail. They're doing enough to get by. Right. Yeah. No one's paying attention to them at the other end because they're not getting any awards, no exit stuff. So you meander through the school pretty much on your own because there just isn't the ability to get to everyone in a school of 1,000 people, right? Yeah. If you're thinking 10% at one end, 10% at the other end, 80% of the population has 70%. How do we help those guys? What would you do differently now? Think of the education process. What would you have hoped was in space for you? What do you think your average was? 65-ish probably, because you graduated, right?
Yeah, I did graduate, and on time. The perspective that I have, being the age that I am, is the question's always asked, what would you do differently? And I think the answer is nothing. I would keep doing exactly the things that I've always done because I always learn from those things. If I would have done something differently, even one tiny little thing differently, I wouldn't be here because it would have taken me on a different path. And I like the path that I'm on because I've created this path, and from high school to where I am today, which is I went to high school, I went to university, I spent 20 years in government, and then I left at 40 to take over a company, build another one, and found a third one. And so you don't get there by yourself. And I'll talk about something that I like to sort of mention, which is called a circle of influence, and it has heavily around mentorship. Is the thing that I would go back in time is, of course, I wish I would have known what I was learning at the time, so I could have been more aware of what I was learning, as opposed to the school of hard knocks where I'm like, oh man, I'm in front of a camera and I'm not good at this right now. I'm consciously incompetent, and I'd rather just skip to the part where I'm unconsciously competent. But the struggle is part of the appreciation of the skills that you're learning, whether you're going to use them in the future or not. So you might think right now that you want to be in radio, and you might think you want to be here, and you might think that you want to write, and you might think that you want to do this, and you're learning all this stuff, and you're investing your time, which is an incredible commodity. It's the one thing that we all have, that we all spend differently. Learning these things and maybe not applying them later down the road is not a waste of time. It just means you translate your skills into other areas. So when I was in sports, I learned teamwork. I learned how to follow instructions. I learned how to listen to my peers, and I learned how to listen to my coaches. Well, when I didn't want to do that anymore, I had to go into the workforce. And now I had to learn how to work with my colleagues, and I had to learn how to report to my boss, and I had to learn how to keep my mouth shut when I disagreed or realize that there's a pecking order, right? So these skills that you're all learning are completely transferable, and that's the thing that I wish I would have remembered or would have been more aware of when I was going through these learning phases. I don't know, Seidler, what do you think? What's kind of going on for you?
Yeah, I mean, like, I work at Canadian Tire. I've never worked at a fast food place, but I had first job was co-op gas station. So, like those things, those little jobs, they taught me a lot, like cleaning, how to talk to people. I got way out of my shell from just, giving people gas and all that, and Canadian Tire helping people. But yeah, it teaches you a lot of the little things that are like really important that you need if you want to have a job and be successful. But yeah, it's about it for me.
So when you started up then, event camp, that was a long journey where you came to the realization, this is what I must do. Is that fair to say? Like, this is where I think I'm going to find my best self.
Yeah, must do is definitely the right term. And I'll double back.
So are we looking at the, I must find what I must do? Or is it okay just to, and does it have to be with work? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you find your deepest sense of fulfillment? Does it involve your job now? Because
Absolutely.
I love the way you talk about your job now. And when I met with you, you were still kind of transitioning from the government world, which was a very different atmosphere. And so jobs all have different feels.
Yeah.
They have different environments. And you have to decide what environment you'd be really, really comfortable in and excited to work in. So just talk about the transition of the environments and where you moved and what the environment is like now for you.
When I was in government, and the time that Adriano and I had met, this was back in 2015. And keep in mind, at that point, there were a lot of transitions and changes going on in my life. So I had spent almost 20 years in government, which is a really long time. And you move around within government, right? You go from one department to the next, or you go under one boss under the other, or you get promoted. And so if you're motivated within that particular work environment and you're happy and you're doing cool stuff with cool people, then stick to it. Because a lot of people are, will say, I'll be happy when, or I'll be happy when. Oh, I'll be so happy when I get a job with government. Oh, I'll be so happy when, I get this promotion, or I'll be so happy, and so on and so forth. The trick really is to try and be as happy as possible in this moment. And that I kind of stole this from David Chilton, who is the author of The Wealthy Barber Returns. And he talks about joy units, and he talks about, enjoy your iPhone 12 for as long as you possibly can for the $1,000 you spent before you need to buy the next one. Just try and enjoy that. And I kind of translated that to time, and I'm like, man, I want to enjoy every single minute of my day as much as humanly possible, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. So when I started applying that joy units and enjoying my time, I had become a father at that point. My kid was born. And I want to be really clear about this. Government is a great place to work. Like, they provide benefits, they provide opportunities for growth, they provide pensions. Somehow that wasn't enough for me when my kid was born. When my kid was born, I had to rush out of the house, drop her off at daycare, head to the office, spend 8 hours there, rush back home, and then spend more time. So I decided at that time I wanted to spend more time with my kid. And how can I do that? Well, I can't do it in government because government tells me I've got to be there 9 to 5, and I can't leave. I don't have that choice. So when that kind of clicked for me, then I decided that I'm going to buy a company, a really very successful event management company, helping out a friend. She was helping me out. And then I knew nothing about events, but I knew that I didn't fail, or I don't fail. It's not something that I do. It's something that I move forward in. And the reason I do that is because I've got a personal drive that I got from playing sports all my life and knowing that I can rely on friends and colleagues and my circle of influence. So before I took the leap from leaving government, I went straight to the one guy who is probably the hardest critic of, or the harshest critic of anything that I want to do. He's the friend that will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And you're like, oh, I broke up with someone. Oh, buddy, how's it going? Are you doing okay? No, he's like, oh man, I broke up with my girlfriend. Yeah, that's okay, man. You'll be fine. It's good. It's going to be fine. So when I said, I want to take over this company, and he says, here's what you have to do. And he laid it out for me. And he was not a mentor. He was in my circle of influence because he's now my chief financial officer. And he's also my best friend of 25 years. But he says, if you're going to do this thing, here's how you have to go about it. He's not going to do the work for me, but he's going to lay out the roadmap for me. And so when that happened, then I said, okay, now I've got one guy in my corner and he's there in my best interest. He's my best friend, and he's dry and he's harsh and he's cut to the chase, but that's who I needed in my life at the time, right? I didn't need somebody who was going to fluff my pillows. I needed somebody who was going to tell me the truth.
Yeah.
And after him, it was the next guy. And the next guy says, well, have you thought about this? And have you thought about this? My mentor, oh, you're making a big change. You're going from government security to benefits to pensions. You've got a kid. What are you going to do? And how are you going to survive? So when I bought the event management company, which is the work that we do to help people plan events, my CFO and my best friend said, you need to have more than just one source of income in the private sector. You can't just do one thing. And then I thought to myself, well, how am I going to do more than one thing? So I decided to build my own online registration platform, and that's EventCamp. Now I got to tell you, from the time that I was in high school, barely scraping by on 50s and 55s, I never thought I'd be here. But in that time from high school, I got my graduate degree, or I got my master's. I've got the best education in entrepreneurship that I've ever gotten in my entire life, because I had to do it on my own, or at least I felt like I was on my own, because it was driven by me, but the people who were in my life were there to support me, and they were there to go, we got you, we're here for you, and come to us for advice whenever you need it. And now that we're making money, they're like, well, now you're going to pay us for that advice. And I'm okay with that.
And you hired them, and they're part of the team.
They're part of the team,
awesome.
yeah. So
that's awesome. That's a powerful powerful story about mentorship and about finding your path. It is a journey. It's wrought with difficulty, with challenge, and pain. There's some pain along the path too, right? When you're self-doubt. Did you ever feel imposter syndrome, where I can't do this, or why am I doing this? Or did you just feel the drive? I listened to Ken Dryden, Montreal Canadian goalie, yesterday, and people were asking him from the crowd. He was doing his little book launch that I bought called My Class at McNally Robinson, and people were asking him, what was it like being the goalie in the 72 Summit Series, or winning the Stanley Cup, beating the heavily favored Boston Bruins in 1971? That's a long time ago, kids. That was a different time and era. And you know what he said? He said things like, I was just in the moment and doing it. I didn't feel like I was special. I just, here's what I got to do. Here's the deal. Here's what I'm trying to do. And he just had this attitude of, everything I've done is, he said, I wasn't a writer in high school. I hated writing. He's written 6 books or something like that. And I got him to sign my books. So I think that attitude of, I'm just going to get my nose into it. I'm going to surround myself with the right people. I'm going to get the right advice. I'm going to act on the advice. And I'm going to be an action-oriented person and do it, is a powerful message for people.
Absolutely.
It's really good stuff. It's a great story. But you know what's more important right now? The quick cues. Riel, we're going to ask you some questions. They're going to be quick questions. Your answers can only be a phrase at max.
All right.
And Caitlin, explain what this is.
It's a bunch of rapid fire questions. Just tell me which one out of the 2 that you prefer.
Sounds good.
And yeah. Okay, are you ready?
No color questions, because I'm colorblind, so you can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Orange juice or apple juice?
Orange juice.
Favorite holiday?
Halloween.
Night or day person?
Day.
Super speed or super strength?
Super strength.
Shows or movies?
Movies.
Fortune or true love?
True love.
Cash or card?
Card.
Extrovert or introvert?
Introvert.
Hamburgers or hot dogs?
Hamburgers.
And the last question, what is your favorite podcast?
This one right here. Adventures in Career.
Well, you got that answer right. So officially, we can upload the podcast.
Yeah.
So some people have had that wrong, and we've had to discard.
Yeah, of course, the whole thing.
Of course,
The whole hour, yeah.
You know, Riel, it's been a lot of fun. And time has flown. We have the producers looking at me constantly saying, you've gone into this time. You need to now shut it down. Which is good. And that's why they do that. And they're monitoring all the sound. We have
Thanks a lot, guys, by the way.
We have a whole producer booth space over there.
Yeah.
Anyway, what a great story about finding your way. And I love that you considered yourself kind of an average or below average student who was looking for those hooks and was craving those hooks, and you surrounded yourself with the people who ignited those curiosities that made you go forward. I just think this is a great story. I think it's an inspirational story, and when students listen to this, they're going to see themselves as, I don't know what I'm doing in school,
That's
but
right.
I think with a little time and effort and the right support group, I can do what I need to do that finds my best self.
And you'll change. Like,
yes.
You think you're going down a path, and you think that this is the path. Like, your parents tell you, or your teachers tell you. And if you want to change your mind, you can.
Yes.
And that's okay. There's nothing that says that your life is carved out in a certain way. You want to change your plans? Change your plans. Your generation is going to do 20 different things between now and the time that you retire at 65. It was 5 to 10 for my generation.
And faster than we ever did it.
Because your learning is so much faster. The tools available to you are so much faster. The access to information is so much faster. And the more liberal approach to education is different than it was back when Mags and I were at school.
And that's a great place to end the podcast. Riel, thanks for hanging out with us in the podcast studio.
This is amazing. I really appreciate it.
It's a great space. I love the conversation, and I think we were calling you Sidler, but you're really Caitlin. Yeah. And Caitlin, awesome. Thanks for being a part of this as usual. Producers, thank you for doing the work. We're on social media. We have a big event coming up called the CAPS, Career and Post-Secondary Symposium, November 21st at the Blue Whale Arts and Tech Center. Post-secondary institutions, a career cafe with many 40-plus industry professionals. There'll be some live job boards. And we are also going to introduce a new symposium called Future Now, and that will be at the event. And wouldn't you know it, Ree is the organizer of that event with a support team. So we look forward to that. So everybody, thanks again for listening to another episode of Adventures in Careerland.